Now we're going to take a trip to Kent's Isle of Sheppey to visit a shipwreck, and this is the wreck of the SS Richard Montgomery, one of 1,000 huge so-called Liberty ships mass-produced by the Americans during World War II.
America recently created a record by launching 14 merchant ships in one day. President Roosevelt called these dramatic launchings a true demonstration of American resolve to maintain the freedom of the sea.
So real history behind this ship, and it came to Britain's coast in August 1944, carrying munitions to help the war effort. But while waiting to join a convoy across the Channel to France, there was harsh weather. This was all a bit unspectacular, really. It just caused the ship to drag anchor. Then it foundered on a sandbank and it went down. And nearly 8 decades later, there it still is, sitting just 1.5 miles from Kent shore. Here's the thing, though. The ship is still covered in munitions, and some locals fear that its 1,400 tons of potent explosives could go off at any time. So we sent our reporter Patrick Thomas down to Sheerness-on-Sea to take a closer look.
When you step off the train here at Sheerness-on-Sea on the Isle of Sheppey, you're greeted by this mural of a mermaid with her hand on a detonator of some TNT. Now, if you're me, you're also greeted by Tim. Hello, Tim.
Welcome to Sheerness. You'll have a blast. I'm Tim Bell. I'm a local historian for the SS Richard Montgomery, our local wreck, which contains 3,632 tons of bombs.
So now we're by the water. I'm trying to work out where it is.
You see the two yellow boys.
Yeah.
And then the mast. You just about see the black mast.
And that's 1 mile and...
About 1.5 miles. Not far.
So Tim's very kindly brought me to his family's sailing club, which they've had for decades, and he's offered to take me up the viewing tower, which apparently offers a great vantage point of the wreck and, I guess, the bombs.
And then we go up even further.
So it's like a very steep set of stairs. Are you alright, man?
Yes, I'm fine, yeah. I've had 2 knee replacements, so I can get about like a young boy now. And as you see, there's a ship coming up now. Let's get my binoculars out and you can have a good look. If you look where that ship is now, you'll see just to the stern of the ship, if you see the yellow marks, you can probably see the mast sticking up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very close to that ship.
It is. Well, at the fairway, the Midway approach channel is only about 58 metres from the start of the exclusion zone, which is the first buoy, which is the South Montgomery buoy, which is this side of the wreck.
Have you been in Sheerness all your life?
Yeah, I've lived on the island all my life, yeah.
So you've been here 76 years and it's been here 76 years?
I have, yeah, that's it. Well, I've actually been there slightly before me. I was born in 1945 and actually founded in 1944, so it's slightly a year older than me. Predates me. What can you do? You got 2 choices: to embrace it or to move away. And my brother's a scientist in the States suggested I should move my house because my house is just opposite, quite close. And he's probably got a point, but I've been here all my life and it's been safe, so I suppose I'm slightly complacent. And most people on the island are, I think. But the more you delve into a subject, the more you don't realise what you don't know.
You almost don't want to know. Thank you to Tim Bell there, local historian in Sheerness-on-Sea. As he puts it, 1 year younger than the ship. He was speaking to our reporter Patrick Thomas. Maybe you live on the Isle of Sheppey. Maybe you started to think, wait, how many tons of explosives on that ship? We'd love you to email vine@bbc.co.uk. This so-called Liberty ship, cargo ship from the Second World War, SS Richard Montgomery, and we had the description there from Tim Bell, the historian. You can see it from the shore. It is only about a mile and a half from the coast. It's in the mouth of the Thames estuary. It's got the rusting masts which come up from the seawater and so on, and it has got that dangerous cargo. It's known to locals affectionately as Monty, but some are getting a bit worried. Dave Welch can help us here, Senior Explosives Officer at Remora UK. If the whole lot went up in a single instant, 1,400 tonnes does sound like a lot.
It does indeed. Yes. Good afternoon, Jeremy.
Hi.
It's a huge amount. I think the key thing here is that's incredibly unlikely. But if it were to, it would cause significant damage, yes.
So would, just thinking about Tim Bell, who's obviously just clocked that, quite late on, would his windows be blown out?
That amount of explosive at that range, yes.
Right. Would it possibly prove lethal to anyone standing on the shore a mile and a half away?
Yeah, I mean, there's been other incidences, notably Halifax in Canada, where there was comparable instances where people refer to it as sort of biggest or largest non-nuclear explosions. Lots of it was above the water, some of it was in the water. And the key thing here is the vessel is underwater, but it's only in 15 metres. So water has a massive suppression ability for blasts and shockwave. However, a mile and a half and 1,500 or 1,400 tonnes, that's very close. Even with much smaller items, you would suffer minor damage at that range.
But I gather your thought about it is you don't get them all going off at once. That's the key thing.
It absolutely is. I mean, don't get me wrong, this thing is a hazard, but it's a managed hazard. And I think that's the crucial point. And I do absolutely get why the local people are slightly sensitive to it. But you have to go back to what's on board the vessel. What is the interaction necessary to make each of those individual items function as they were intended, or indeed in a way that causes them to be energetic? A Liberty ship wasn't just sort of chucked together. Many of the munitions will have planking around them. Some of the items may have sediment around them, and others have got water separating them from other munitions. And we know that, I've mentioned water is a good suppression agent. We know that timber also provides attenuation of a blast wave. So to get one item to then cause that domino effect of energy transfer throughout that vessel, I can't tell you it's 100% guaranteed it would not happen, but it's incredibly likely. And a lot of cleverer people than I have done risk profiles and assessed, the likelihood of that. I think it's fair to say that if one item went, some others would also. But the fact that it probably wouldn't all go, the entire vessel in one hit, is where my position is on it.
And if it sits below the sea, as it has done for, let us think, 56, 76 years, does that gradually destroy the bomb qualities of each individual piece of ordnance? In other words, after 100 years, they just don't work as bombs anymore?
If only.
Really?
Well, I'm almost glad they don't, because that's my day job. So dealing with ordnance, explosives haven't been found to necessarily degrade over time. The containers that they're in and the structure of the firing mechanism is the thing that is the issue, along with the vessel itself. So if I was going to assess it, for me, the biggest risk there is the vessel falling apart, and in that process, affecting an item that has got elements that have decayed during the time underwater, subsequently causing a detonation of some sort.
I was just thinking, if the only analogy I can think of is if I dropped a box of fireworks in the sea and I tried to light them 70 years later, they're not going to go off.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy to detonate an item of ordnance underwater. You've got to get through, you've got to, first of all, have intimate contact. You've got to get through the water and into the casing, and through that casing with enough energy to cause the explosive filling inside to function as it would, and effectively it wants to return to a gas. That's why things have fuses, and I think the fused item on this wreck are the biggest single issue, in that they the compositions used, the lead azides, etc., are sensitive compositions. There's concerns with regards to them being in humid atmospheres or moist atmospheres and how they may leach other compositions. At this stage, unproven on that particular wreck, but it's known scientifically to be a case. And they can form sensitive compositions which make the item or the area where the item is slightly more sensitized to heat shock or friction, of course, coming from either the vessel collapsing or another vessel going past it, impacting exactly in that position. And that's the key point. You would need to have that lucky aim strike in order for that to work. We deal routinely with these sorts of primary high explosive compositions, and there is absolutely a number of safe systems of work to adopt which can protect the workers and the project from those types of things. Right. It's harder here because it's underwater.
Okay, just last question, and you got to call it here. Okay, because we work on the principle of better safe than sorry, everyone's going to say, oh, just disarm it or blow it up. However, it's not as simple as that, because when you cause a massive controlled explosion, you also hurt a lot of sea life. So what would you do? Would you just leave it?
No, our plan would be to empty it and undertake low-order techniques, preferably above the waterline. There's a perfectly good range around the corner, or low-order techniques in shallow water with mitigation for the mammals.
Thank you very much. Interesting. Dave Welch, Senior Explosives Officer at Remora, UK, with a lot of experience of dealing with this kind of unexploded ordnance. All right. Amazing, isn't it? And whether you should worry if you live a mile and a half. Kim in Essex says the Montgomery is a huge threat to many people 5 miles away, but not in Kent. Don't forget everyone in Southend-on-Sea. So it's not just that county, it's also Southend. Whether it's a huge threat, we heard our expert saying it would have to all go off at once. Paddy Luckhurst emails, if it were to explode, it would probably cause devastation in Sheerness and beyond. Reminds us of the scene, isn't it? Naked Gun, where there's a truck with a missile on it crashes into a fireworks factory, and the resulting pyrotechnics are extraordinary, and the police officer, played by Leslie Nielsen, is shouting, "Nothing to see here." Tony Graham in Galston, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so impressed by what it says on my piece of paper. You've dived on this wreck, so you've seen it.
Yes, lots of times. They used to carry out an annual, I think it was first of all annual, then it was biannual survey, a diving survey of the wreck to see how much it was disintegrating, because obviously if the wreck's disintegrating, you've got more chance of the munitions rolling out onto the seabed, and some of them indeed had, and there were quite a lot of things there that were depleted and severely corroded. So obviously it's unlikely that they would go off.
But you're a brave man to dive right down to that much explosive.
Well, I used to work with a diving company called Shires Diving, and we used to have quite a few guys who were ex-Navy and had been into quite a lot of wrecks. And so, we knew pretty much what you could do and what you couldn't do and how far you could go into the thing. It's not something to go right inside, I would say, unless you're going to have some real tight health and safety regulations in place.
Well, all the opposite.
You don't want anybody swimming about in it for fun,
No, I think you're right. Thank you. I've got to cancel my weekend plans now. Saying that they are planning to cut the masts off that warship so that it's not visible from the shore, which seems a shame. In the next hour, we talk about Brewdog and the allegations of bullying at that brewery. And also, what's the most unusual item?